Welcome to News Now. Tonight, Governor Gretchen Whitmer addresses the nation. Is it a simple nod to the importance of Michigan in the presidential election, or an interview to be a vice presidential candidate? And the Iowa caucuses, the first big test for Democrats. Who will pass and who will fade out of the presidential picture? But first, Michael Bloomberg spent the day in Michigan. Can the billionaire make a solid case to Metro Detroiters that he should be the next president of the United States? Joe DeSano is here to break it all down for us. Joe, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you for having me back.
So Michael Bloomberg is in Michigan on the same day the president is giving the State of the Union address and the governor is giving the response. Not by accident, I imagine?
No, not by accident at all. I think she was selected because of her profile as the governor of Michigan, and also that, she's got some things going here in the state, and people across the country are noticing. So you're going to see her from East Lansing High School, just down the street from my house, and she'll be doing the State of the Union response.
Michael Bloomberg could have been anywhere today. Why do you think he picked Michigan?
I think a number of reasons. One, really the most important, is ballots are being cast here in Michigan. Right now, if you so chose, you could go down to your local clerk's office and get a ballot and vote in the Michigan primary. So, for everyone's concern about the disaster down in Iowa, there are votes being cast elsewhere, and you go where the votes are in politics. And right now, it's here in Michigan and it's New Hampshire. Although Bloomberg very smartly is not competing in New Hampshire, but there are votes outside of Iowa that count right now.
When people think of Michael Bloomberg, I think they immediately think billionaire, they think New York mayor, but I don't know how much they know about his politics. At one time, he actually ran as a Republican and then as a Democrat. What is your thoughts on Bloomberg as a possible candidate and his politics?
Well, I think his politics are very middle of the road. People like to talk about that cliche about being fiscally responsible and socially liberal. I think that does describe Bloomberg to a certain degree. He does seem to be oriented towards results and getting things done. And, he very well might be a big winner out of this Iowa mess, because he's one of the only candidates in that field who can talk about running large organizations efficiently and successfully. And, so, people just want things to work. They don't want it. I'm not going to go down that road right now. But the fact of the matter is, Bloomberg is a guy who makes trains run on time. That's probably not the best analogy to be using, but he is a person who's results oriented, and I think voters could respond to that very, very well. And they're far more familiar with him now than they were in the past.
So people think of Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders to the left and Joe Biden more in the middle. Bloomberg would be more in the middle, along the lines of Joe Biden.
No question. No question.
Yeah. And so tell me this. Does he have the ability to sort of compete just from the airwaves? He bought a Super Bowl ad, spent millions of dollars on that. How do you think that landed, and how do you think of his strategy?
Well, I haven't heard anyone talk about the Super Bowl ad since it happened. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's wasted money, because that's, changing the seat cushion for us. So, they'll have $1 million. For him, it's just change. Loose change. I do think that he is making significant inroads in Michigan, not just on the airwaves, though. He has been building a political infrastructure here and in other states that I think it's under the radar spending. It's completely legal, I should say that, but he's building an infrastructure here to go along with the airwaves, and that's a pretty potent combination.
When the national media is talking about Michael Bloomberg, they just focus on Super Tuesday. Does that mean he's all in on Super Tuesday, and if it doesn't work, he's out, or is Michigan a big part of that as well?
Well, I would tend to think I'm going to take him at his word that he's in this thing for the duration, because it's not just Super Tuesday, really. It's everywhere but New Hampshire and Iowa. His resources allow him to compete everywhere indefinitely. So he's not like a traditional candidate whose activities are governed by the ebbs and flows of campaign cash. He just has to, spend his own money, so he can go forever. I mean, he's worth, I think, something like $68 billion, he can drop $1 or $2 billion, and it's nothing, and it's more money than anyone else would have, even probably the president.
Let's talk about Iowa. The whole world, or the whole country at least, kind of watched to see what would happen in Iowa and if there would be any surprises. And I guess the big surprise was that we weren't able to find out anything because we weren't getting results. What happened there?
Well, I think clearly it's human error, it's incompetence, it's a process that's ripe for disaster, as we've seen. And I don't think anyone anticipated a disaster to the extent that we witnessed last night and this morning, and still is continuing. But the last two rounds of caucuses in Iowa outside of this year have been troubled as well. I would point to folks back in 2012 who forgot that Rick Santorum won because on caucus election night, Mitt Romney claimed victory. And last time in 2016, the Republicans were fighting, between Trump and Ted Cruz about actual quantifiable results. So the last two rounds of caucuses have been problematic, and hopefully this is the end of caucuses in presidential nominating contests. They're racist. There are so many problems. To rely on a state like Iowa to set the tone for a nominating process for Democrats when Iowa looks nothing like the Democratic Party, I think is ridiculous. And folks like Debbie Dingell and Carl Levin have been very vocal about this for decades. So they were right. The rest of the world was wrong.
Do you think this adds more fuel to the conspiracy fire that everything's rigged, or do you think people will just see this as human error and problems that come along?
Well, I mean, you're never going to stop conspiracy theories. It's my experience in Democratic politics that no one can keep a secret long enough for there to be a conspiracy. And there's just loads of anecdotal data of errors from last night that, for normal people see this for what it is. And that's a problematic process that, is discriminatory in many ways. But the reality of it, there's no conspiracy here. This is just human stupidity. And it's always easier to believe that human stupidity is at work than nefarious conspiracies. But that's not going to stop the Bernie Bros. I mean, I've seen in Twitter has been just inundated with crazy conspiracy theories that give people magical powers to manipulate data. And the real world doesn't work that way. But hey, you know what? That's never stopped Bernie Sanders supporters.
All right. When we come back, we'll talk the president and the State of the Union address. We'll be right back. Welcome back to News Now. Political consultant Joe DeSano is here on a very busy day in politics. Joe, the State of the Union address, it's basically at the same time as the impeachment hearing votes. Are you surprised the president didn't wait until next week to give the State of the Union address?
Well, I think they certainly did not want to do this under the weight of impeachment, but he doesn't get to select that date. That's up to the Speaker of the House. So she sends a letter to him inviting him. He doesn't just show up. So I would expect tonight for him to be very rosy and upbeat on the economy, but there's no way that he's not going to spike the ball on impeachment because it's all but over. And, we're starting to see the long-term repercussions start to be in play here. But that's not going to stop him. He's going to gloat. He's going to be Trump to the nth degree. And hopefully he'll stick to the speech. He'll keep the ad-libbing to a minimum, and people can be out of there in an hour. But that's going to happen.
His advisors got to be telling him to stay with the positives. He has a lot of good things to talk about. He made a lot of promises, and he's had a lot of success on what he promised in his first term. You don't think he'll just stay on the economy? You think he'll jump off script and kind of go after Democrats?
Well, I think he's going to spend a lot of his time going after Democrats. He's going to paint a rosy, optimistic future that doesn't include Democrats. So he's going to point to his record. Now I'll differ with you on my opinions of his accomplishments. I mean, the growth of the economy is far lower than what he promised. He promised 4% growth. Average is 3.2. We're at 2.9. There's a lot more to this economy than just the 401ks.
Right, but tonight's not going to be a debate. It's going to be the president's opportunity to put the best look on what he thinks his accomplishments are. And when he talks about unemployment, and we've seen him do this at his rallies, he gets going, and the crowds respond. Will the people at home watching on TV respond positively, or do you think half the country's going to just hate what he's saying and half the country's going to
I think half the country's going to hate whatever he says just on the face of it. Now, that atmosphere is far different than one of his rallies. It's a pretty sedate chamber. I mean, you'll have the drama about when to clap, when not to clap, all the stuff that I think regular folks hate, and frankly I do too. But the success of the speech is, can he stick to the teleprompter without veering off into? I mean, he's the type of guy where he could see someone in the audience smile and then just take off on a tangent based on that and throw the teleprompter to the wind. And this is precision politics. This is, every word is going to be parsed. So he needs to put the best reelection argument he can come up with in that hour and a half. He'll have the nation's attention. And I expect it to be positive. I really don't think he's going to pass up the chance to spike the ball and stick his middle finger in the face of Democrats.
Well, we'll have to watch and see how that goes. Let's talk about Governor Gretchen Whitmer. She's going to be giving the response. This is really a huge stage for her. Is she up for it?
Oh, absolutely. Telegenic, good record, swing state. Yeah, she fits the bill exactly who you want to have doing the official Democratic response to the State of the Union.
So what's important for her to say?
Well, I think she should be pushing the line that, in the States we're getting things done while Washington's fighting. Now we can discuss amongst ourselves at some point about the veracity of that, but it's a very powerful political message to go out there, and I think it's important to have her as a really strong contrast to him. Even on his best moments, he's scowling and angry. Someone's always an enemy. She's not that way. And this will be a pretty great debut, I think, for her on the national stage. And, to be honest, people are going to it's already started, but people are going to be looking at her very closely as a vice presidential possibility. So
well, I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. If this is sort of a tryout for or a job interview for vice president, who would she appeal to out of the candidates?
Oh, I think she would appeal to females who we need to turn out in vast majorities to be the president in November. Those are her folks, the college-educated women, women who have a real keen feel for social issues. I think she represents the Midwest very, very well. It's going to be kind of funny to watch the national media respond to her Michigan accent, which we don't hear. But she has a lot of the qualities that you would look to. She's fresh and she's new, and that's so important in politics. And, she's going to do very well tonight, I think, and especially because the bar is so low, because there's been so many disasters in the slot. I'd point to Bobby Jindal and his water glass from 8 years ago. Marco Rubio, made a fool of himself with another water glass as well. So she's uniquely talented in this department, and I think is going to do very, very well.
If she talks about Michigan, she's obviously not going to talk about roads, which is what she got elected on. That doesn't make sense on a national stage.
Oh, actually, I disagree.
Really?
I disagree. She could point to the roads as her getting stuff done above the partisan squabbling.
And the budget, how does she explain that? The same way that there's just infighting here in Michigan?
Yeah, and she worked her way around it and got something done.
And what about things like education and jobs and other things that are important to voters who are going to be at home and don't really follow what's going on in Michigan that closely?
Yeah, I think she'll touch on both those issues, but I think where she's going to have enormous credibility, and I think she's going to have enormous interest from her audience, is on the issue of affordable health care.
In what regard?
In what regard is people are deeply concerned about how they're going to pay for their health care, keep their health care, and how they're going to survive in case of a medical emergency.
I mean,
these problems haven't disappeared.
I mean, you think she has the solution to that?
Oh, I don't think. I think she doesn't have to present her solution. She has to present to the Democratic or to the people of the United States who are watching that the Democratic Party has answers to these pressing problems.
All right, Joe DeSano, thanks for joining us on News Now today.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back with more. Welcome back. Joining us now is Chad Livengood of Detroit Cranes Business. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
So we got the Iowa caucuses, we got the State of the Union, we got Michigan's governor giving the response to the State of the Union. Anything else going on? Impeachment acquittal?
Impeachment acquittal. Governor Whitmer is also going to lay out a $60 billion budget plan on Thursday. It's kind of a busy week in Michigan and U.S. politics.
All right, we got about 7 minutes. Let's get into it. Let's talk about what President Trump's saying and what Governor Whitmer is going to respond to.
Yeah, I would expect the president to try to talk about this booming economy and how things are great. They've never been so good. I mean, he likes to cite these unemployment numbers. When he was in Warren last week, he cites these unemployment numbers of African Americans, Hispanics. Although I think we'll hear from Governor Whitmer that it's not just the unemployment; it's the workforce participation rate, which is still low, especially
the amount of pay too, right?
Like the number of people, the number of people working, but also about pay and wages are stagnant under President Trump. They're not going up. So there's going to be two messages here. I think this is going to be you're going to see this throughout the campaign, that the president is talking about the stock market, and Democrats are going to be talking about minimum wage or just regular wages for everyday
paycheck
workers.
To paycheck, kind of.
Yeah, that people aren't really any better off.
We have jobs, but they're not good enough paying jobs.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some counter argument that you're not as better off as you were 4 years ago.
What about the governor? She's giving the response from her daughter's school. That's kind of cool. How do you think she did in the state of the state? And is she getting better at her performances? This is a national stage.
Yeah, I mean, she's a pretty well-tuned and fine speaker. She's been doing this for quite a while, but this is pretty unique. Yeah, she's going to be in the auditorium at both her daughter's high school in East Lansing, giving a speech in front of a crowd of 300 people, basically supporters. It's not going to be, there's not going to be a lot of opponents, I'm sure, but so it's going to be a friendly crowd, and at the same time, she's going to have an opportunity to propel herself to the national stage a little bit. She's already getting, mentioned as a potential person that could be a running mate for the Democratic nominee. She's kind of tried to shun that talk, which is what you do at this stage in the game. You don't talk about it, or don't say, yeah, I'd love to do that. But she's got the credentials. I mean, she's a Midwest governor. Female would balance out a ticket, especially if Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden were the nominee. And so she would bring the needed state. Obviously, is Michigan. You can't win this presidency without winning Michigan. Donald Trump is a testament to that, and he won the state by fewer than 11,000 votes in 2016. So he's going to be going for broke here, basically, and to have some kind of a firewall in Michigan would be really advantageous for Democrats.
So Republicans are going to be sitting back and saying, hey, why don't you come and fix the darn roads and take care of other problems in Michigan instead of applying for a job as a VP, right?
Well, they're already taking shots at her on this. So they are already taking shots at the fact that the governor's office announced on Monday that she was not going to give her own budget presentation on Thursday at the Capitol. She's going to let her state budget director do it, and then she's going to hold a press conference. And the Republicans are already saying, oh, you've got time. You took out a $3.5 billion loan last week to pay for roads, and then you got time to go and give Democratic rebuttals to the president, but you don't have time to go face Republican legislators in Lansing who you're asking for support on various budget initiatives. So I think you're going to see this partisan warfare kind of ramp up between Governor Whitmer and the Republicans.
How do you feel like just the regular Michigan citizen sitting at home is going to see her giving the response? Because I kind of think they're going to be like, oh, I'm proud, I'm from Michigan, and here's our governor giving the response. That's pretty cool. Maybe it will allow her to have a little more power in D.C. to bring money home to Michigan. I don't know that they'll be angry that she's doing it because she should be here. What do you think?
Yeah, there's not politically for the state. There's not a lot of downside to having your governor be the respondent. As you point out, yeah, you could be in a position to be seen as influential to a Republican president like Donald Trump, who very well could be the president for another 4 years, and or the U.S. Senate, where you need, where Governor Whitmer is going to need relationships and respect to get some of her agenda done at the federal level.
So what would it look like if one of the candidates decided they wanted Gretchen Whitmer to be their running mate this time around? How would that actually play out?
Well, I mean, the nominating conventions for both parties are in July, and the Democrats are going to Milwaukee. So if that was to happen, it would likely, that the nominee would pick. They always pick the person and unveil their running mate usually the week before the convention, so they can run into the convention, go through the ticker tape parade there, and be united. So I mean, it would be just like any other governor who has run for vice president in recent history. Sarah Palin in the Republican ticket in 2008, Mike Pence in 2016 with Donald Trump. You're simply basically stepping away from the governorship full day to day, and you're out on the campaign trail 7 days a week.
And quickly, what will that look like though? What would that look like here in Michigan? Because she's only in her second year. She's not
right.
Like she's been here for 8-9 years.
Yeah, and that'll be one of the criticisms, I'm sure, and scrutiny that, okay, what exactly has she accomplished as governor? I mean, she can point to no-fault auto insurance reform, although that was basically driven by the Republican legislature. She was kind of a late comer to being involved in that, and then she hasn't really accomplished what she sought out to get new revenue for roads, although she's going this new route where we're doing this bonding program, and that might be something that she points to. I can see her this summer standing out in front of road construction sites more than once, pointing to, hey, this is what I'm doing to fix the darn roads.
All right, thanks for joining us. That's our show for tonight. Thanks for stopping by. For everyone at News Now, I'm Kevin Dietz. Good night.